fans, and
and
then
then it melts, and then they blow out.
Jointing, I believe it's called. And
I couldn't tell you what the
Engineering
technical
terms.
term.
Yeah, okay.
I think so. But
I
you
will
don't
say-
mess
ice
around
heaves.
with
Ice
it.
heaves. That's what it's called.
I will say
saw a
there was
sign.
one of
Well,
them
ice
that
heaves, that's where you get the rollers, but I mean, that's where, I mean, back on Snow King,
Yeah, 6:30.
boy, that's same thing, it's just starting to blow up, there's little potholes.
Oh,
going
God,
all
yeah.
over
just
the place,
you're
and
just
then-
driving through, all of a sudden
Your car tire just falls on.
there was one pothole as long as from the wall to the hat display.
Really?
It was underwater.
All right, you
Shut
guys
up.
done talking about potholes?
I don't know.
Hey everyone, welcome back to our second night of Taiwan on Tuesday. We've got Mike, John, and Howard here. They're going to be talking about swinging flies for trout, and I am going to let them go into detail because I don't even know what that means. But shout out to Wyoming Whiskey and Rep Your Water again tonight. Thanks for donating the whiskey and making sure the boys don't go thirsty. Also, we've got the rest of the calendar kind of booked up. So next week, Scott Sanchez is going to be in here. He's going to be doing some like fun, wacky, creative flies. So have your kids tune in. It's going to be really fun. And then the Tuesday after that, March 2nd, I believe, Howard is going to be discussing steelhead fishing, tying some flies. And the founder of Wyoming Whiskey is going to be joining, David DeFazio. And then March 9th, Jay Buckner will be doing a cool show on some international flies. So that'll be really interesting as well. Mike has brought his homebrew tonight.
Mm-hmm.
It is called the Trout Spay IPA. It's pretty delicious. So we're sipping good tonight. So you guys sit back, enjoy, type some questions in, let us know how you're feeling, how things sound, and I'll let you guys take it away.
Are you pouring here?
Oh, am I the bartender as well?
Well, I mean,
I'll pour you some whiskey, Howard, just for
I
you.
mean, this was kind of your deal.
Are you
Is that
having any or
good?
no?
You kind of poured it
That
out
is
the
a
old
small pour. Remember what Ken did last week? Got to do half of the glass. And I'm good on that, by the way.
We're gonna tie flies tonight.
That's
I don't know if you guys are making it that far.
a little portion of what we're
Cheers.
doing tonight.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning
Yeah.
in, guys.
Cheers, everybody. All right. So,
Well,
what
you guys, you and Ken went fishing today, right?
is that? What we're starting off with? Is fishing?
Yeah.
Well,
Tell us how the fishing was.
We'll say how the fishing was. It was slow.
Where'd you go?
We went to the South Fork of the Snake, anywhere from the dam section all the way down to Spring Creek, the boat ramp. It's kind of one of our favorite sections this time of year. You can find a lot of good fishing water, whether it's for swinging flies like we're going to talk about today, nymph fishing, kind of whatever you want, dry fly fishing, all that. Primarily, I personally nymphed more than anything today. I know Ken, who's kind of behind the scenes, he swung streamers or small streamers, kind of like we're tying today, and he caught a couple fish that way. Managed to catch a couple fish nymphing as well. Just a lot of small midge patterns, some small
Well,
stone flies.
But how's fishing been in general?
But in general,
Since
it's
the last 2 weeks since
yeah. So
last one we did.
say you went out and fished last weekend. I mean, you can put your 2 cents in from here.
Good.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. If you want to.
Yeah, got a few bumps and stuff. What we noticed today was a lot of.
You can just stand behind us, Ken.
I don't
No,
have
we
my
want to see
vacuum.
you.
I don't have my vacuum cleaner with
Yeah,
me.
yeah, leave your broom back there.
Okay.
Come on around here.
Okay. Yeah. One thing that we did notice today that there was a lot of was a ton of big adult midges on the snowbank and on the water. But I think the fish are still riveted to the bottom. But give them a few weeks, and I think we'll have a good dry fly report.
Yeah, some more days like today. And
Yeah.
some
definitely.
evenings
Yeah.
that don't get drop out so much.
Yeah, I think even if there wasn't a slight breeze, it would have been a different game. And I know Ken said he saw a couple heads poking up, but nothing too crazy that you got to start fishing dries right now.
Okay, so now this fly you got going here.
Yep.
This is kind of a deal of your own, kind of a mini.
Correct. So an intruder is a type of fly pattern, just in design. What we're making is micro ones, so just pretty small. I'd say 2 to 2.5 inches at most. Primarily for swinging flies on trout spays like Mike and Howard, we do, and Ken as well. But one thing I kind of wanted to focus on too with talking about swinging flies, it doesn't have to be just trout spay. You know, I started off swinging just with a single hander and a floating line, and a single hander with a sink tip. You know, it doesn't have to be rocket science. It can be very simple and effective, especially this time of year where maybe we're not seeing a lot of dry fly activity. This kind of does prolong our season where we don't really have to sit at home, tie flies, wait for stuff to kind of heat up. You know, it's not going to be hot and heavy, but it's another way to get out and fish, depending on time of year. You can fish hatches and stuff like that as well. You can fish dry flies, which is, I know, something Howard wanted to bring up that a lot of people aren't necessarily doing. But that's just kind of what we're going to start off with, and I'll let
Yeah,
you
well,
guys kind of go
yeah,
with
we'll
whatever
get into that.
points. But
So here's three. Those are three kind
Yep.
of similar patterns.
Yep. So this is primarily going to be, and I know Claire will zoom in. This is going to be a little bit closer to what I'm tying today. Some stuff I'm going to make a little different. Like I know with this guy, I got rubber legs in the back here.
Can't catch a fish without rubber legs.
Nope. Howard, you know that. You were never catching fish before rubber
Exactly.
legs
I was
came
just
out.
casting. I was
Exactly.
just casting.
You were just looking like you knew what you were doing. But the nice thing I like about this style of flies, you can really make them what you want. You can make them to look like small insects, sculpins, other bait fish, or stuff like this guy where it's, you know, lavender, pink, and white. Doesn't really look like anything natural that you find in the river, but this is actually a color scheme I've had a lot of success with over
That's
the
what you were
years.
saying
So
the other day.
I couldn't tell you what it is about this color scheme, but that's just one that's
Now is that time of
done-
year or?
you know,
all
I
year
think
round,
that's
or-
just, I wouldn't say it's seasonal. It's just one that's produced pretty well for me. Winter, spring, summer, fall. You know, couldn't quite say why, but
I've got a question
Yeah.
that might be a curiosity of folks watching tonight.
yeah.
Why do we tie flies like this when we're spay fishing, whether it's for trout or steelhead? Why am I not going out with my trout spay rod and just swinging a woolly bugger or a sex dungeon? What is it about this style of fly? Is it for casting? Is it about how it looks in the water or moves? Why are
Yeah.
we fishing this when we do spay style fishing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point you brought up that you can swing woolly buggers and other traditional kind of streamers. The thing I like about these style of flies is the durability, at least in regards to how we're tying it. I'm going to do a technique called a composite loop. And what we're doing is making a synthetic hackle, if you will, if you know what a hackle is, something like these where you polymer it around the shank. But it's just another presentation. I don't know if I really have a good explanation as to why I'd fish this over, say, a woolly bugger. It's just personal preference. I mean, with any fly fishing, I think, or
Well, I'd say
any
it's
fly pattern. But
Easier to cast, no?
yeah, there's not as much bulk there, especially with some woolly buggers, or if you use leech patterns that have zonker strips on them. Those zonker strips absorb a lot of water and get heavy, especially on the lighter end of rods. It becomes a hassle to cast as opposed to these where they tend to shed water a little bit easier because it's primarily made of synthetic materials, very lightly weighted, which eventually when we zoom in on a fly on some steps, I have an extra small set of dumbbell eyes on here. I don't need to get a really, really heavy fly, to fish effectively with swinging flies. I mean, I know you like to, you can swing soft hackles with trout spays. So it doesn't have to be big, ginormous streamers or super tiny stuff. You can kind of just fish whatever you want, really.
When I first started doing it, without a doubt, I was using pretty traditional streamers.
Yeah.
And just swinging them, whatever. I think one thing I've done, and maybe a little bit what you've done, kind of coming from the steelhead side,
Yeah.
where I've kind of transformed I don't look at it from, back in the day, we looked at the rod, line, fly.
Yeah.
Myself, I look now from the fly, line, rod. I look back
Yeah.
back that
Exactly.
way. So I'm designing a fly just what you very, very sparse.
Yeah.
A lot of movement though
Mhm.
in it. Easy to cast, and I'm relying on either Versatip, poly leader, or
Yeah.
whatever. I'm relying on that to get the fly down
Yep.
to where I want it to get.
Sure.
Yeah.
And again, when we're swinging, I mean, the fact of the matter is, we're not really probably going to be fishing that deep. I mean, we
Yeah.
can,
Yeah.
we can, we certainly can, but most of the time, it's probably the water that I'm picking. I'm picking specific
Yeah.
water.
Exactly, to swing
Yeah,
that style
okay.
of fly or whatever fly you're picking, for sure.
All right, so
Um,
again,
but-
this week we're kind of doing, this isn't going to be necessarily a step-by-step.
Yeah.
This is going to be, you're going to tie, we're going to talk.
Yeah.
If you people have some questions or whatever,
Yeah.
fire them
Yes,
at us.
yep.
And I think you really want to go over that composite.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
definitely
so-
one step I'd like to focus on, but we'll definitely take a minute, zoom in, and we'll figure out how we're gonna
What's that
tie
face?
this.
Well, John, I'll interrupt you. Juliet Martin says, "Don't have a clue what you guys are talking about, but it's nice to see and hear you." I feel you, Juliet.
Jeez, yeah, yeah. That's what we're talking about. A whole nother animal in the realm of fly fishing. But a simple way. Do you want to try and figure out a simple way to describe swinging a fly? Like,
It's two-handed rods.
Can you get up and demonstrate it, please?
I'd say Mike's got
It's
his.
not,
so-
a single-handed, fly rod has one grip basically right above the reel. This is going to have two grips, one above and one below.
yeah.
Just take the butts out.
Yeah. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about two-handed rods.
Yeah.
Like
Not a
Howard-
spay rod.
Yeah.
It's a two-handed rod.
Yeah, so like Howard said, your traditional rod's got just the top portion of the cork. These ones are going to have a little back handle that can be any length depending on the rod, all that kind of fun stuff. But this is what we're primarily talking about when it comes to swinging flies.
Length?
So this one that I actually tried out, which is Mike's rod today, it's 11-foot 2-weight. And he bought this primarily for swinging soft hackles, like we were saying earlier. You don't have to use it for just streamers. But they make everything from 1 weights all the way up to 5 weights when you're talking about trout, maybe even a 6 weight depending on the size of trout you're fishing for. But-
Depending on the company.
Yeah, and depending on
And-
the company as well.
And before we go too far down that road, for folks who really are completely unfamiliar with spay fishing, when we're talking about a 2-weight rod for trout spay, there's something called like the rule of 3, right, Howard?
Something
Depends
like
on
that.
the rod company.
Depends on the rods, the make, the
And
model.
Why I can't tell you.
Sure.
Yeah,
everybody I
that's-
talk to. Some rod companies, a 2-weight would translate into a 5-weight single-handed rod. Other companies, it would translate into a 4-weight. But 2 to 3 line sizes higher than what they're calling a trout spay rod.
Yeah.
Now, originally, switch rods, now they've kind of gone away from that,
Yeah.
calling them trout spay. And from somewhere 10 feet to, well, as much
I'd
as
say
12.
11 and a half.
Yeah,
Yeah,
11 and a
12.
half probably, but
Yeah.
most stuff right now is going to be around 11 and a half.
Yeah.
So a 2 to a 4-weight trout spay rod is going to cover roughly a 4 to a 6 or 7-weight single hand. So most of our trout applications that we come in contact with here on the Snake or in Idaho.
Yep.
So one more question before you start tying. Why do we use weight and not grain these days?
That's coming.
That's
That's coming.
Spain's getting ahead of us.
Yeah, I've predicted in my lifetime, maybe won't happen, but I think that you'll see single-handed rods going from what's normally considered a 4-weight, 5-weight, 6-weight. It'll go into a grain weight situation. That's pretty much now,
Yeah.
definitely in the steelhead salmon side of it.
Yeah.
People in the that are really involved in it. We don't talk line sizes anymore. We talk grain weight.
Yeah.
That rod handles 450 grains to 480 grains. Much better depending on the line, whatever. And I think I've been saying this for a while that will come with single hand rods too.
Yeah. No, for sure. But
Well,
Yeah.
put some thread on there.
I already got some thread
Okay,
on there.
Put a feather or something on there.
Yeah, we're getting to it.
All
This
right.
isn't a step by step, remember? we're taking it one step at a time here. I think the biggest thing with tying flies in general, and especially a style of fly like this where we're creating a hackle, less is more in regards to materials. The more you make these full and bulky, the less heavier they're going to be to cast. They're going to be a lot more difficult in regards for sinking them, and they're just not going to swim as well. They'll definitely look kind of clunky if you look at them from underwater or looking at them from over top view if you're fishing them, stuff like that. So I always think kind of less is more in regards to this. And I'm going to follow what Howard said last week. I'm not using any dubbing or any dubbing wax because that means I don't know how to dub a fly.
Jeez. Who said that?
He did.
Oh,
He said that to a customer when he had high country flies.
I did too.
Oh, did you? Yeah, that's okay. And I always do it the wrong way too. I dub counterclockwise as opposed to clockwise. That's just me personally. Huh?
We'll flip it around, make you left-handed.
Shoot. So what I'm doing on this back section here is I'm just making a little dubbing ball. The reason for that is an intruder style fly traditionally has 2 stages, what we call it. And what a stage is in this circumstance, or in this scenario, is 2 different tying portions. So like on these ones that I'm going to be tying here, you can see if I pull it away, I have one little back section right here, again with a dubbing ball and some other materials. Then I have a front section or a portion or stage of the fly. So that's what an intruder in my mind is a 2-staged, sparsely tied fly. Some people say otherwise, but that's kind of another topic to talk about. But I like to do bright colors in the back to make a hot spot, like you see in other fly patterns. So if a fish is coming up on the fly, they kind of have something to key in on, and especially in this situation where we're tying on a traditional hook, not necessarily a shank where we can put trailing wire or even articulated stuff. I know some people do that. They're going to eat it right where the hook points at. We don't have anything
Okay, so
trailing
what
back
hook,
here.
what hook you got going there?
So this is another U-series hook from Tiemco, the 103. So 1 extra small wire and a 2 extra long in a size 6. I like a little bit longer shanks on these hooks so I can get a little bit bigger profile without really having to put too much material on or just having too big of a fly in general, which I think is definitely key in this situation. And then what I'm going to put on next is just a hackle. And this could be any hackle you want. I'm going to kind of follow the color scheme here of orange in the back, because the fly we're primarily going to be tying, or the fly we are tying, is going to be olive and orange. That's just another good color scheme I've had a lot of success with. And I'm going to do exactly what Howard doesn't like again and break the tip off instead of cutting it. I'm doing everything wrong.
Don't be throwing me in the...
I'm not throwing you under the
This
bus.
is
You're
your
doing
deal.
great, John. Just keep tying.
Yeah.
I know.
Here, I'll drink to that.
I don't think we have to try too hard, Howard, to have you drink to that. So all I'm going to do is take, I don't know, maybe 3 wraps or so. So this would be 2. Again, I don't want it to be super heavy, but I want it to be present in the fly to where you can see it, but it's not obnoxious. I'm going to cut that off kind of close there. And again, I'm just going to take these fibers and pull them back.
So do you think that little deal there, it breeze, it's moving?
Yeah, so what we're going to end up doing is we're going to actually put rubber legs on this one. Originally, I put ostrich pearl, which is very good natural material that swims very well, and I wouldn't say it's super durable to an extent, but I like the swimmy aspect of it. Definitely swims well. So do
So
rubber
when you're
legs.
saying
But
swim, you're saying movement.
correct. Yeah, swimming means movement in this case. That's kind of what I really look for in these patterns. And since you tie them pretty sparse, they move and dart around pretty good themselves. Obviously, the more swimmy aspect you can add to it, just a little bit more, I guess, lifelike you could say it looks, which is kind of a big deal for me. But that's, at least in that regard, important. And what I'm going to do is I do all this a little weird, but I come up, I'd say about if you think about the width of the eyes, probably about that far back, because this is where we're going to put in that second station of the fly. And I'm building my body from here. What I'll actually do, just to maintain a more uniform body going backwards, is I'll actually tie materials in the front, pull them back, and wrap over them backwards, so I don't get bulk in any weird spaces or places, and it doesn't look real goofy or anything like that. And I will be putting two rubber legs on each side, again, just to make it a little bit more swimmy, which I think again is important. And you could do orange legs, whatever legs you want, depending on the color of the fly you're tying. You know, that's a nice thing again about tying a composite loop style fly, is they're really easy to do exactly what color scheme you want. Some of these I tie, make them look like sculpins. Some of them I do just to have more of a leech kind of look to them. So, you know, any color scheme you can think of, I'm sure you'll find a trout that'll eat it. They're not usually too picky, which is nice. And this guy, pull it up underneath.
So you're backing that into that ball. So,
Yep.
So they flare back out.
Exactly. Yep.
So what's going on with the snowpack in Jackson right now? How's the snow affecting the rivers? What's going on there?
I mean, you guys can go into that if you want.
Well, yeah,
It's not the
me.
John show. It's the JD.
I mean, we had a lean January. It was cold. It was dry for large periods of early
Yeah, but
winter.
it wasn't cold.
Not cold like it used to be.
Like the
Howard.
old days.
But we've caught up recently. We've had a lot of moisture in February, and just in the last few days, we've pushed close to 100% of the long-term average for snow water equivalent. So what does that mean for the outlook for the summer? Still a lot of winter left, and we still need a lot more snow.
Yeah.
As for right now, things in the upper Snake are pretty snowy.
Yep.
It's work to get to the
If-
river.
Yeah, if you're thinking, the guys said today, if you're thinking of going now, we've kind of been backing off of that just because, like you said, Mike, that it hasn't been that on the valley floor. You know, the higher elevation's been good, but valley floor hasn't been that bad. But now, if you're thinking of going out now, you better start thinking of snowshoes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cross-country skis, something like that. But John, you said you were getting out.
Yeah, I
today.
mean,
You
I
were
was,
postal.
yeah,
and-
growing high, if not higher in some spots.
Yeah.
Like, it was getting to be pretty reckless out there. You had to work for it, that's for sure. Got my workout in for today anyways. I'll tell you that much. But, so what we're doing here now is I put a piece of chartreuse wire in here. Again, it could be copper, black, whatever color you really want it to be. What I'm actually going to do on this, guys, we're going to put a body hackle on it. It's not a very necessary step. It's just for aesthetics, kind of what I want. Has nothing to do in this aspect, in my opinion, for a small or a fly this small. It doesn't really have to do with the function of the fly. It's just, again, aesthetics. I mean, Howard may argue a little differently in regards to putting a body hackle on a fly. You know, I don't know. It's just something
No. Whenever you tie a fly, period, I mean, if you have a good feeling about it, you know, it's got good mojo right off the get-go.
Yeah. That's true.
I mean, myself, I kind of tell this in our advanced regular fly tying class that Goddard caddis. I have never caught a fish on a Goddard caddis. And other people, they swear by it. You know, I put it on, I have it on for 10, 15 minutes, and nothing, and then I put something else on. See, that damn thing doesn't work, whatever. Yeah, but the other one I had probably had on for an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, that worked. But, you know, half of a fly, you have a good feeling about it.
Well, that's true.
Well, and streamer fishing in particular, how much of it is just confidence, repetition?
well,
The one you start catching fish on is the one you keep catching fish on.
Well, especially with swinging flies too. You know, that's one thing that I personally for a long time did was really overstock my fly box. Like I'd have 3 or 4 fly boxes with 10 different patterns in each one of them, and I've
Fish
boiled
one
it.
of 'em.
I've boiled it down to probably 3 patterns. You know, that's kind of key. Just 3 confidence patterns, so you're not getting, you know, too ahead of yourself or weird. But
And that's one of them.
yeah, exactly. So
Well, especially two-handed rod, streamer fishing in general, But two-handed rod, for sure, when you get that combination of the fly, like I said, if you think from the fly
Yeah.
back to the rod. So I have the fly, the sink tip, or the floating line, or whatever it is.
Yep.
Back on, and you get that combination that everything just is
snaps.
happening.
Yeah.
I mean, because you fish it better,
Yeah.
you're fishing it properly, you're fishing at the speed that you like, whatever.
Yep.
Okay, we better shut up for a little bit.
So we have a question from Rocco Scola.
Oh God.
Have you tried a small version of an Eat a Peach leech in the rivers out here?
That I haven't. I have done, and if anybody is wondering what Anita Peach Leech is, one of my friends back home, Dave Pinchkowski, he came up with a fly called Anita Peach Leech. Big Olin Brothers fan, just the coloration of the head on the fly. Anyways, he makes another fly called the Bad Hair Day, which is kind of sculpin imitation, made primarily craft fur and just flash with a little bit of laser dub, stuff like that. I've fished those out here in smaller patterns and done okay on them. I wouldn't say I've, done
Yeah,
extremely
you should
well.
run
But
for politics because you're not answering.
That's fine.
He
But no.
competes. He doesn't care about the.
no, I haven't, if that helps.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Howard.
Would it work though?
Trout or trout? Man?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know Dave has used them for smaller, for regular trout, and he ties them smaller, and they work. So,
Well, there we go.
I don't see why they wouldn't. So,
And we have another question from Mr. Chris Nordbrock.
oh, God.
When will we start seeing the little black stoneflies, and what is their scientific name, so I can sound smart around a fly shop?
We
We
should.
had one guest from the audience. He said a Capria stonefly.
Capnia.
Close. Capnia.
Capnia.
With an N.
So he's not right.
Well, he's
Close. Partial credit.
I mean, he's right in just calling it a little black stonefly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you need to know the Latin, okay.
We should be seeing them soon, but
Maybe when you said you saw stuff on the snowbank today, did you really look at that?
I
Was
did. And
was
they,
that
yeah,
midges?
they were just
Yeah,
bigger
no,
midgets.
they were-
yeah, not yet.
they were large midges.
Because that's what you'll see with those little black stones.
Yeah.
You will see them scattered onto the side of the snowbank. So, and back again, especially over on the other side, they call them snow flies a lot, but they're actually a little stone fly.
and this just, I know we've been talking about in the shop, it seems like things are a little bit behind schedule
Yeah,
as far
they
as
do.
our midge hatches are going here in Jackson Hole. I haven't seen Capnias yet. I was out 2 days this week. They should be coming.
Yep.
We just need a warm snap.
Yeah, that's true.
Important, it can be a really important. I
Patch.
do
Or-
a little emerger for that. Ooh, I gotta talk to you, Claire, about that. That's what I'm supposed to do for Wyoming Trout Unlimited. That I'm gonna probably do for that. It's actually because if fish can really key in on that. And you think that they're eating midges, and they can really get picky in this wintertime situation. And that particular insect, for the most part, actually hatches in the water. They don't crawl out onto the like how we think of the larger stonefly, like
The salmon fly or golden
fly,
side,
the golden
goldens.
stones, whatever. They actually hatch. The majority of them hatch in the water, so they get keyed in on that emergence, and can be something.
And one of your followers, John, says, John Guy, one of the best tires I know.
Okay.
And Mr. Alec Lucy.
Oh God. Thanks, Alec.
He owes you money, doesn't he?
No. No, but I do time a pretty sweet mouse pattern. That.
Yeah.
That Ken has one of them that he neglects. Just sits in his fly box all day.
So we wrapping up stage 1 here.
Yeah.
So while we were bantering, what was happening?
So yeah, while we were all going back and forth about capnias and stuff, I put this is a material called midge braid. It's kind of a little sparkly olive color.
It's kind of a
Braided
tinsel,
core.
It's kind of a
Yeah, it's like a tinsel that they just obviously braid
got
together.
a little texture to it.
Exactly. plumbered that up the shank, tied my body hackle that I was saying I was going to tie in earlier up at the front. And traditionally,
Now, did you tie it in dry fly style or did you tie it in wet fly style? Your hackle.
What does that mean?
so the convex is facing this way
So-
back.
So,
So
wet,
it's not,
wet fly.
yeah.
Okay.
See, it took me a second, but I was
Well,
like,
just, you know.
yeah, no,
I totally knew what he was talking
Sure.
about.
But yeah, so if you look at any hackle, you always have a convex and a convex and a concave side. I tied it in with the concave side going backwards, which is a traditional wet fly style, as opposed to a dry fly where you want it the other way. But anyways, so yeah, and
So
The
what's your
way-
next move?
Stage 2.
Jeez. Stage 2, that it is. Which, if we're gonna be talking about stage 2, this is
Does that mean stage
the
2 beer?
spot.
That's what I was wondering.
Is this stage 2 beer?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. I would have been tying faster then if we're
Well,
doing
shoot,
that.
I'll come around the camera for this.
Claire's working hard back there too.
I am. Being a director is tough. Thanks,
Director,
Mike.
Producer,
All of the above.
The writer, screenwriter.
Mike, tell us about your little homebrew situation you do.
Yeah, so Howard, how could I forget you, Howard?
easily.
Easy? No. So last spring, something happened. We had a pandemic begin, and my wife and I decided it'd be a good time to start home brewing. So we started a brewery called Trout Bum Ale Works, and it's actually on Untapped. You should look it up if you have that app. But it's just been a really fun hobby. It's been fun to learn new things. It's challenging, and it just kind of goes hand in hand with fishing, you know.
There you go.
And fly tying, exactly. You get really thirsty fly tying. It's funny how that works.
And they're delicious.
That you do.
Well, thank you, Claire.
Well, thank you, Mike, for bringing your beer.
Yeah, cheers.
I don't drink the whiskey. I can't handle it. So,
You're from Wisconsin.
yeah, I wasn't one of those people that was drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning.
No, beer.
Oh, yeah, beer. I thought you were talking about just drinking.
No,
I was
no,
gonna say,
no,
like,
no,
holy
no,
smoke,
no,
Howard.
no, you're from Wisconsin. Beer.
Stage 2.
Stage 2. So this part of the fly, I think, is very important if you're interested in tying this style of fly. And if, Claire, you need to have this little board I made in a better position, let me know.
Yeah.
So,
Show it.
so what this is if you look at it, it doesn't really look like much. But what I did, just draw a straight line, and I measured out inches. So there's here's 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, so on and so forth. Reason for this is because the more and more you tie this style of fly, you actually can kind of figure out what proportions are. So about 1 inch of material on here is about 4 wraps around the shank. And the reason you really want to know that, again, is because we want to figure out our proportions. And I know Howard was talking about proportions when he was tying that nymph in regards to shank length on the fly, but in regards to the amount of space I have here, I need to know proportions on how much material I'm putting in this.
Well, and
pattern.
that's going to determine how many wraps that
Well,
you're going to
exactly.
go around. So if you want to write, you're saying you're going to get 4 wraps
Every inch.
for every inch.
Correct.
If you wanted to do less,
Yep.
or if you wanted to do more, you're going
Exactly.
to increase that. So a bigger fly, would you use a different formula?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it depends on how much space you need to cover.
Right.
Some styles of flies, you don't use this in the front portion of it. You actually use it for the body. So obviously where you need to cover a lot more room, you're going to use a lot more of that board. Well, in this situation where I don't have much space I need to take up or use, I'm going to use a little bit smaller portion, maybe 1 inch, 1.5 inches on this board.
Now, if you'd notice how just let that go.
Yeah, I know, it's spinning.
Okay. There's the reason why you want to go when
I
you
know.
do your dub.
I know you want to go clockwise. I know.
Because
Hey, my
when you're
fly-
going in, you're loosening it.
I know.
If you
Well, good
did-
thing we're not doing dubbing.
No, we already did.
Yeah, I already did. It's just a little ball,
But
so it's
that's,
okay.
that's the reason why.
So,
Yes.
so again, this is a common technique to plan
Correct.
and help improve when you're tying a composite loop. Is that
Correct.
what we're
Yep.
talking about?
Exactly. I know some people that just use a straight line. They know how much material they need, no matter what. If their time flies, this just helps me a lot more. I call it a composite loop board. It's all it is. It's just a piece of paper.
Jerry Frank.
But yeah, Jerry French, who tied this style of fly, that's a big thing for him is
Ed
this board.
Jerry Frank,
Yeah.
John Kovich.
Yep. So very
never done
important,
this
I
before.
think. But yeah, I mean, it's an
I've never done
interesting
it before.
style of fly. You can do this for, again, small trout flies like this or big steelhead flies. You can do it for soft hackles. I've
Well,
done it
let's
with
do it
soft
right
hackles
now.
too.
So we do have
Jeez,
another
Howard.
question
You're like an
about
hour.
No,
big
we
and
don't.
small. Does fishing with a two-hand rod lend itself better to large rivers, or can you use them on smaller streams?
Great question.
Yeah.
One of the big points that I wanted to bring out tonight, that I've been doing two-handed rod stuff for a while. One of the big point I've been. I'll just say it. I'll just say it. 20 years ago. Well, maybe not 20. Okay.
You're aging yourself.
I'm gonna go 15 years ago when I started doing this for trout. The big picture that the rod companies are missing to this day, and I've talked to numerous ones personally, is the dry fly situation that you can do. All they're talking about is swinging. They're doing this type of thing with a streamer. They're doing it with soft tackles, whatever. But dry fly stuff, especially for the Jackson area or for any kind of river stream situation that's a runoff, a tractor dry fly fishery.
Yeah.
It is extremely effective or whatever. So yes, it can be used on big rivers, it can be used on small rivers, it can be used wherever. The one thing I would say is don't get caught up into the single-handed rod scenario of thinking, I'm fishing a small river, I want a shorter rod.
Yeah.
You're not going to give anything away from going to a longer rod. So, personally myself, I like something like these guys were saying, something 11 to 11 and a half feet for trout spay. Because again, I'm not giving up anything. Mending line, just the mere fact of me going from this to this, down here where my hands are, I'm not moving that much. But out there, where the end of the rod is, where the tip is, I'm moving 2-3 more feet of line with the same movement.
Yep.
Extremely effective. I know, Mike, you do a lot of soft tackle stuff, which I haven't done that much of. I've done some, but mainly my stuff has been streamer fishing, or swinging streamers, or dry.
Sure.
I probably do more dry fly stuff than I
Yeah.
really do,
Even
not at
swinging.
this time of year.
Right.
Not at this
Yeah.
time of year. But I mean, in the meat of the season,
Yeah.
with a two-handed trout spay, than I do,
Yeah.
the other stuff. I mean, when you're fishing a big hunk of foam this big,
Yeah.
And I don't have to hit a specific spot, but I want to drift, man, I can get a drift
Yeah.
forever, and I can adjust, move, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're under a time deal. I'll shut up. You guys go.
All right.
Composite loop.
So, composite loop.
Composite loop.
So what I did on this little piece of paper I have in front of me, I took a decent sized clump of ice dub. I'm using olive brown for this one because I want the front portion to be a little bit darker color, kind of imitating a sculpin, stuff like that. And what we do is we card it, and I'll kind of show you in this. So what carding is I'll take the clump in my hand, and I'll actually take it from both ends, and I'll just pull lightly. And what that is you're straightening those fibers out in getting a rough general length. And the reason you do that is, especially with ice dub, it works really well. I call it a sandwich with a composite loop. It sticks to itself very well. So that's why I have a little clump to the side. I took about half. You do about half and half as the portions for dubbing. Do half and half on the card, spread out to about 1.5 inches, and the rest of it on there. So when we make our sandwich, we can lay it on top, and everything's all good and ready to go. The next material to put in the loop, and this can honestly be what you want. I've done it with turkey flats, even Amherst pheasant, traditional ringneck pheasant for more natural kind of buggy stuff. But this material, it's called Cenuous. It's a barred predator wrap. And what it is, it's just
natural buggy stuff.
more of a naturally kind of.
Man, I don't know if we ever caught fish on that stuff.
Nope, I'm telling you, Howard, that's my secret.
Okay.
What this is it's a long fiber that you get on a braid. It's synthetic, so again, I don't know exactly what material it is, but they do a great job in regards to barring it and coloring it,
And-
which I really like.
And not only that, it stays fast. There's a lot of stuff that's barred.
Yeah.
After you fish it a little bit,
Yep.
it bleeds on out.
Exactly.
This does not.
Yeah, this stays barred, which I think is key because most bait fish, anything natural, has some barring or different coloration in it for camouflage. So what I do is, obviously you can tell by like this, I don't use this whole entire length. So what I end up doing is I'll take about 1 inch of the material, I'll switch it to my left hand, and I'll actually just cut it off the braid. And the braid gets put to the side, and all the material I'm really working with is about that inch that I did end up cutting off. And what I'm going to do is now I'm going to lay this material in the sandwich. And the thing with the composite loop is how I lay this material in is going to dictate whether it's really stiff and holds a good profile, or when it swings and it swims, it really thins down. So the nice thing about this line is I can kind of eyeball how I'm laying these materials in here. I can do 50-50, which would give you a really, really heavy shoulder, as we call it, a really big profile, and all that means is I'm taking about 50% of the length, putting it on one side, another 50% goes on the other. You can do 60-40 for a little bit more of a taper. You can even do 70-30 for a really thin fly, depending on what you really want. For mine, I like it to be about 60-40 as best as I can. Obviously, it's a little hard to get it exact, but I'll just take tiny clumps of this out, and I'll end up laying it in here. And sometimes I'll even take a bodkin to help separate them so they're not all clumped. Because one thing that's going to happen in this too is when we put it in our dubbing, we spin it up, some of the stuff gets clumped out. So you'll see me brushing the material quite a bit, which is going to be kind of key in getting those materials loosened up and not bound in themselves to give you a good profile. So one last little material I'll put in there is a Cenuous Fusion Dub. It's a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little bit heavier texture, or the fibers are a little bit more stiff. And all that's going to do is just make this shoulder a little bit stronger and gives it more structure. But what I do is I'll actually take it, and all the really long stuff, I'll just pull it out and throw it away on both sides. I don't really want all that super long stuff in there. And I'll
And
actually.
So for you, first, keep going.
Oh.
So you kind of entry level fly tires, don't worry about throwing a little bit of stuff away like that.
No, this is just.
Because you'll go through that.
Yeah.
Because, this stuff doesn't cost anything.
No. So again, I'm going to kind of lay this material in there.
Okay. Now you're laying that right over the top.
Correct. To
So
make
now
that
you
sandwich.
have 3 layers.
Yep.
So you have the first,
The ice dub,
then you have
the predator wrap.
it could have been a pheasant.
Yeah, it could be
Could
pheasant,
have
whatever
natural,
material.
could have been natural.
Yep.
Okay.
No.
And then you have another layer right over the top.
Correct.
So
Yep.
you got a real sandwich going.
Yep. And then actually what I end up doing is the rest of that ice dub I have here, and there's a little bit much for my liking. Again, because I want this to be sparse. The more sparse these are tied, the better they're going to swim and fish for you. But that also boils down to confidence. I like the way it's tied, so I'm going to have confidence in fishing it.
Just throw it in there and we'll give it to Ken.
Yeah. I don't like it. Here you go, Ken.
Thanks.
And you can see this ice dub does a good job at sticking to itself. I mean, I don't know if you can see that on the camera very well, but, I'm holding on to a small portion of it and it's not falling. So that's, again, why I like ice dub, especially as a material like this for a composite loop. And actually what I'm doing, again, is I'm sandwiching on top, and I'll actually take my finger and I'll kind of compress it down, again, just so hopefully stuff kind of interlocks like a Velcro almost. So, and I mean, you can see I can pick this entire thing up and it's not falling apart. That's kind of what I'm looking for when I'm tying these. And you can hold them, I use my index finger and my thumb when I put it in my dubbing loop. This time I did put wax in there because I want this material to be held in there just fine. I don't want it to fly out or do anything funny. So I'll lay it in there, again, kind of 60-40, so that's where
So now
maybe-
when you say 60-40 again,
Yep.
explain that. What is that?
So just like on this little board I made, how I laid my materials in there, maybe 60% of it on this side and 40% on that side for the length, I think of this line now as my thread. I lay it in my thread, again, with that 60% of it on this side or 40 on this side. Now, which side doesn't really matter when we lay it in our thread. But the big thing is what I do too, I know it's kind of hard to see from a front view camera, but I'll put my index finger underneath it and I'll take my bodkin and I'll actually come in and I'll separate some of those predator wrap pieces. And again, that's just to make sure that when I spin this up, stuff doesn't get clumped together. And also what that means is when I'm fishing, there's not like a big clump of material on this side as opposed to this side. I'm trying to get a pretty even wrap all the way around this. And sometimes I'll even take it and just pull it around, finagle it however I want. Pour it, Howard.
Hey, you're
So I
running-
give it a good
You
spin.
think I would take a long time to tie a fly?
Hey, you're the one that told me it takes 2 days to tie a steelhead fly.
Giving Kelly a run for his money.
Hey, you know what? I want to be thorough.
Okay.
But so you can see I put it in my dubbing loop and I twisted it up. Obviously I can't wrap it like this in that small space I have. So what I have here is a little dubbing brush, whether it's a bristle or this one. It's an EP brush actually. And what it is essentially just a small dog brush. What I do is I take it and I actually run it along my materials here that I spun up. So what I'm doing is, I'm removing a lot of those fibers that may not have gotten spun up in here properly. But
they're
I'm-
not going to stick anyway.
Yeah,
So that's just bulk that you'd be tying in.
yeah, there's stuff in here that again,
You're getting out.
Yep.
So you're getting it back into a sparse.
exactly. And what that does too is any of those fibers that may have been trapped in there, it's opening them up. Because usually what you can do is you can get that core of this dubbing loop pretty thin, almost exactly like thread if you really work at it. And I'll usually come in with both brushes and I'll get it to a point where I'm really, really happy with it.
You should open a dog grooming business.
This would be kind of hard to use on a dog. But again,
Depends if you charge by the hour.
but I got that to a point where I like, and usually I don't have it tonight, just because I forgot to quick grab it. But usually what I'll do is I'll use water. And the reason for that is, although we're not supposed to touch our mouths and stuff with COVID, I'm gonna use saliva.
Oh gosh.
So, but what I'm doing is I look for a part point on here, pretend like you're parting hair. And the reason I do that is because then I can get a sense of direction for when I wrap everything backwards. Usually I use water. It helps actually compress these materials down. And what that actually does too is this spun thread I have in here, it actually makes it tighter around the materials. So that's where that durability side of the fly comes into play. It's it's very hard for this material to get pulled out of this loop. So these flies usually last a very long time. Once you tie a couple of them, you really don't have to tie anymore. And all I'm doing is palmering this like I would any hackle. Here, I'll put this back on. Nothing's
When
changing
you're saying
there.
palmering, not necessarily in the traditional thing of when we do a woolly bugger,
Correct.
where we're palmering spacing. You're going boom, boom,
Yep,
boom,
I
boom,
want
boom.
these wraps
And
to be
that's
to be
one of the
tight.
reasons why you're folding that back.
Yep, exactly. And what that does too, in turn, is it makes the shoulder a lot more stiff. If I space these wraps far apart, it's not going to hold as big of a profile. So the closer I wrap these together, the bigger the profile it creates. And I may even added a little too much material in this loop, but that's okay. We'll still powder finish it off, and it will still fish fine. And I'll give it some good pulls in there. I'm not too worried about this breaking, which it happens. I've done it where I spin the loop up and it pops, and all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, what
but-
thread are you using?
This is actually, which usually I use gel spun thread, but this is an 8/0 thread from
8/0.
Semperfli.
Yep.
And it's actually, for what it is, it's a very strong, durable thread. But I'll come in then and I'll cut the loop off, so I'm done with that. Then actually, nope, so what I'll do is I'll just take a couple whip finishes around it. And the reason for that is I'm pulling these materials back out, because obviously you can see it's just a big clump. I want to open all that stuff up and free it. So what I'll come do is I'll take my bodkin through it a couple times. Then I'll actually come through with, again, this little dog brush or the EP brush I have, and I'll just brush everything forward. So this is just opening all those fibers again that I trapped when I was palmering it forward.
Okay, so you're saying EP brush. What does that mean?
That's just, I think of it as a teeny tiny dog brush. It's the same style of bristles. It's just
Why you
really
call it
hard.
EP.
That's just what they market it as. Hairline, whoever's selling it, the EP fibers you use for saltwater flies, they market it that way.
Who
but
is EP?
Enrico Puglisi.
There you go.
But
You were
that's
just
not important.
testing him.
No, I'm not testing. I want people so they like, what the hell is an EP brush?
Yeah. But I'll just brush this stuff forward, and again, I'll
Kids
come
these
in.
days.
I want to make sure that I brush this out as much as I can. Thanks, Mike. But so what I did there is, again, I made that shoulder. So when this guy swims, it's going to hold a good profile here, and it's going to
When you're
be.
saying a shoulder, you have a body behind it.
Yep.
And this here, and
Yep.
it can't collapse totally
Correct.
down.
So like
It's
on
gonna
this
stay
guy.
wide. It's going to breathe.
Yep, exactly. So easiest way I find to finish these flies off, I know some people that will do hackle tips. I usually just use ostrich roll just because it's easy, it's simple, I can get the length I want. I'm actually using chartreuse ostrich roll. What I'll end up doing too is I'll take a Sharpie to it and I'll color it up, give it some bars so it looks a little bit more natural, if you will. Don't have to do it, it's just something I like to do. And I'll take maybe a half a dozen fibers or more. I don't feel like I have to go too sparse on this wing. And I'll usually do it almost about the length of the rubber legs when they're straightened out. Reason being is sometimes when you tie these over wings in, if you tie them too short, there's a little vortex that gets created by this front shoulder to give it that motion. It actually curls over into the fly and it doesn't look very natural. So I like to make them a little bit longer. And I'll also pull the butts on the ostrich roll back and tie over them just to lock that in. And again, I'll come in and cut it. Oh, of course, didn't want to cut. That's what I get for bad scissors. I'll cut it kind of close, pull everything back, and I'll just wrap over the ostrich roll butts. And that's really the fly.
Okay, I know we're running a little bit long.
Yep.
But one thing we haven't mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, where you place those dumbbell eyes,
Mm-hmm.
in all actuality,
Mm-hmm.
this is the way the fly is going to ride.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. So I put the dumbbell eyes on what would be the top of the hook because I want the orientation with the hook point up. And that also helps in regards to not hooking bottom. Like Howard was saying earlier,
Okay,
for the
go,
most
go, go,
part,
go, go.
we don't want. Yeah, I already whip finished it. I can
All
talk
right,
and
well
do the
then.
same.
Finish her up.
Yeah, she's already finished.
Okay.
Beautiful fly.
An
hour later.
You guys are giving him a hard time.
Yeah, I know.
That's why we keep them
Oh no, I'm
Get the
one
young-
that-
get-
I'm the one that always takes so long to tie a fly.
Get the young guy in here and give him a hard time.
All right, so we got another question
Yeah.
from Chaz. What part of the water column would you recommend at fishing these flies? See, I ask these questions and I have no idea what they mean, but I'm assuming you guys know what that means.
Mike, you want to jump? I have an opinion.
I mean, I think for
As-
me,
as most time.
I think for me, a lot of trout spay fishing is about the thrill of trying to attract the fish with a fly that has a lot of lifelike motion. And often we're bringing fish up in the water column to our fly. That's the thrill for me. So I'm not fishing this terribly deep. But what do you think, Howard?
Okay, I think this goes back to what we originally said. That, you know, the type of water that I'm fishing.
Mhm.
I'm looking for a specific type of water, probably somewhere between 3 and 4 feet deep with the certain pace,
Yeah.
the certain volume of water going through it. That's what I'm looking for, far more than how deep it is, whatever, because, again, a fish lives basically, really, well, okay, 3 places. One on the bottom, one very near the surface, and one maybe 2 to 3 feet, 3 feet maybe below the surface. That fish that's on the bottom, he's the mofo. Because he ain't looking to eat. So, honey, I'm not fishing for, he ain't the guy that's gonna take, or he or she ain't gonna take. I mean, you know what, yeah, if you're nymphing, you know, but that one that's somewhere here to there, that fish is gonna take. He or she is looking for something to eat. And so that's where so I'm looking for the right speed of water, the right depth of water, that I can swing the fly through there. I might even give it a little
Movement.
Definitely.
Little movement.
Twitches.
through there, whatever. You guys
Yeah.
do the same?
No, that's-
Am I?
That whole thing about water depth, that current type is a good point. I mean, that's
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends too on the season. You know, right now in
Oh,
wintertime,
totally.
I'm personally fishing a lot. I wouldn't say slow water, but a decent walking pace that's got good depth to it. And it could be 3 to 4 feet, or I could be swinging a spot that's got 8 feet of depth.
If it has the right speed.
Exactly. And
Speed
you know,
is more important than depth.
yeah, exactly. Now come springtime when fish are getting a little more active, water temp's warming up, you might be looking for that shallower water.
No, I'm
With-
looking
with
for
a good
dry
speed.
fly.
See, you're switching gears to dry
I
flies.
know. Okay, Claire, we got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Let's see the final fly.
Yeah, so when it's all said and done, this is what you're gonna get. Again, you can, take out a lot of different materials and make them what you want. I'll do ostrich trail for the back where I did rubber legs. I've even finished flies off on over top with rubber legs.
Oh,
So
God. You're a desperate man.
why? Because I use rubber legs.
Well, no, you have to do it in the back and the front.
Why not?
Oh my God.
It's not like he tied a squirmy worm on the thing. Come on.
Yeah.
Pretty close. Pretty close.
But that's what we're looking at. So.
All right.
Claire
Good
will-
job, John. That's a great fly.
Yeah.
Gee, thank
Yeah.
you.
That's awesome. Well, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but Howard brought your flies to Washington, and you got a bunch of steelhead, right?
Well, that was
Oh,
during the summer, yeah.
Different flies.
You can have that one.
Different flies.
But I mean,
Yeah. No.
you're an expert in Howard's eyes.
No. Very great flight there. What are you talking? Fine.
awesome.
And I learned what a
No.
composite loop is.
Huh?
I learned what a composite loop is finally.
There you go.
Well, thanks for joining in, everyone. Hope you learned some stuff, had some fun. We certainly did. And we will see you guys next week. Scott's gonna be going crazy, so it'll be entertaining. Feel free to tune in and
Get the
like,
kids.
yeah,
Get the kids.
grab your kids.
Alright, kids.
Come get some supplies if you need them. Tie up with them. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
So thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks.
Take care, guys.
Cheers.
No, it's
Are we on live?
It takes